A pool in Houston will run you $60,000 minimum, and that's with no waterfall, no tanning ledge, none of the extras. It adds back about 7 to 10% of your home's value. Do that math on a $500,000 house and you're still down tens of thousands of dollars the day that you sell. That is regret number 1. I'm covering 7 upgrades Houston buyers regret after they move in, plus 2 that actually pay you back. First up, the backyard. Here's the thing about almost every upgrade on this list. The day it goes in, it feels like the best decision you've ever made. It's new, it's shiny, and you cannot imagine ever regretting it. Then a year goes by, sometimes less, and the shine wears off faster than anyone expects. You stop noticing it every time you walk past it, and eventually it just becomes another thing sitting in your yard or your bathroom that costs real money and does not get used the way that you pictured. I watch this pattern play out over and over with buyers here in North Houston. My team and I help roughly 200 families every year move to this area, so I'm not guessing at these patterns from a spreadsheet somewhere. I'm watching them happen in real time with real people, and I want to walk you through them before you spend the money, not after you're already regretting it. Let's stay in the backyard for a second, because the pool is not the only outdoor project people regret. Outdoor kitchens are actually a solid investment almost everywhere in the country, and that includes Houston. Nationally, they can return anywhere from 55 to 200% of what you spend, and warm climates like ours usually land on the higher end of that range. So the regret here is not the money, it's the maintenance. And this is one I know firsthand. I have a home gym set up in my garage, and I moved here from Denver where I had the exact same equipment that held up for years with zero problems. Materials like leather, metal, none of it needed replacing. Here in Houston, my leather boxing gloves started flaking apart within months. My metal barbell started to rust the minute I got to Houston. And to be honest, I'm still kind of sad about it. But anyway, that's exactly what happens to an unsealed outdoor kitchen down here. The cabinetry, the hinges, the grout, all of it takes a beating from humidity that a lot of buyers never plan for when they're looking at photos of somebody else's finished backyard. And here's the part nobody mentions when they warn you about outdoor kitchens. Everyone assumes they get less use in the summer because of the cold up north. Down here, it's the exact opposite problem. When it's 100 degrees in July and August, you're not standing outside grilling for an hour. You're inside with the air conditioning on full blast and the blackout curtains shut. So the actual usable window for an outdoor kitchen in Houston is really the spring and the fall, which is a shorter stretch than a lot of buyers picture when they're dreaming up their backyard. If you're going to build one, budget more than the national average for materials that can actually survive our climate, because the cheap version will need new hardware within a few years, and at that point, you're paying for it twice. Next is backyard playground equipment. The big wooden structures with the slides, the swing sets, and the rock climbing wall can run you anywhere from $2,000 to over $10,000. Kids love them for a few years, and then they age out and move on to sports and activities outside the house. Comment below if you can relate to this. And then that big expensive structure just sits there in the yard, getting exposed to the same elements that we just talked about and degrading over time. And the part that's not always obvious to people is that swing sets and playground equipment do not come with you when you move. It either gets torn out at your own expense before you list the house, or it stays behind and the new buyer gets it for free, and you do not see a single dollar of that money back in your sale price. It's money that is gone the moment you sell, whether you take it apart or leave it standing. On top of that, most master plan communities out here already include a neighborhood pool and a playground, or several of them, in your HOA dues, so you may already be paying for that amenity just right down the street. Before you spend 5 figures on a permanent structure in your own yard, it's worth asking yourself honestly how many years you're actually planning to stay in that house and if it will get good use. If you're planning to move to North Houston and you want a real honest look at what it actually costs to live here, the property taxes, insurance, all of it, I have a free relocation guide that walks you through it all. The link's in the description below, go grab it. So let's head inside because the regrets don't stop at the back door. The first one indoors is high-end appliances. When people move into a new place, especially their first home, there's this pull to replace everything with the fanciest version available the moment you get the keys. The refrigerator, you know, the one with the glass door you can see through, with the built-in touch screen that tells you the weather and plays you music. I understand the appeal. It feels like a fresh start, but appraisers don't credit luxury appliance brands at resale. None of that extra spending shows up when you sell, And a lot of these high-tech appliances are also more expensive to repair when something eventually breaks. My advice, especially if this is your first house, stick to a reliable mid-range brand with a name you already trust and save that extra money for something that actually holds its value over time. Next up are freestanding soaking tubs. They look so luxurious in the model home, sitting there under that perfect lighting, and just by looking at it, you can feel your stress melting away. I understand exactly why people fall for them, but a lot of my clients regret them once they're actually living with one day to day. They take up a huge footprint in the bathroom, they're hard to clean because of the shape, and most people end up using them a handful of times a year at most. If storage is important to you, I don't think anyone would disagree with this. A tub or a shower with a nook or a simple tiled ledge built around it goes really far compared to a freestanding tub with a thin ledge that you can't even put a bottle of shampoo on. And here's something worth knowing if you're house hunting right now. A lot of newer builds in Houston have actually moved away from including a tub in the primary bathroom at all. And instead, they're doing an oversized walk-in shower because that's what most buyers actually use from day to day. Some builders still offer a tub if you know which floor plans to look for. So if you're a bath girl like me, don't worry, it's not out of the question. Now, we have to talk more about room conversions, such as turning a garage into living space. And if you've never heard of this, yes, people do it. I understand completely why you would do this. It's a cheaper way to add square footage versus building an actual addition onto the house. And of course, everyone wants more space. But in Houston, your garage often sits at the highest point on your slab, which makes it one of the safer places on your property to store things if water gets into the yard during heavy rain. Convert that space into a bedroom or a home office and you lose that buffer entirely. Plus, an even bigger factor is you shrink your buyer pool at resale because most buyers here expect to have at least a 2-car garage. If you do it right with proper permitting, a conversion can add somewhere around 10 to 20% in value. But without permits, it can actually cost you at resale. And this is because lenders and appraisers will not credit unpermitted square footage. And buyers then will negotiate the price down to cover their own risk. And one more thing a lot of people don't consider, converting your garage raises your homeowner's insurance premium too, because you've just increased the finished square footage of the home that the insurance premium has to cover if something happens to the house. I actually had a client recently who had a very hard time selling his house because it was a former model home where the garage was an office space and he opted to not convert it back to a garage after he purchased it. The #1 complaint he had from showings was that it lacked a garage. So this is something to seriously think about if you're considering a remodel. The same idea applies to converting a bedroom into a walk-in closet. I've seen this quite a few times, and not gonna lie, it's something I would love to do myself. Let's be real, us girls dream about that huge walk-in closet with the chandelier, the built-ins, and the unlimited storage for our bags and shoes. But it almost always hurts the seller at resale. Buyers walk into that room, and instead of seeing what you saw when you created it, they immediately start doing the math in their head on what it's gonna cost them to convert it back to a bedroom, which is practically what most people are looking for instead of a massive closet. That mental math almost always shows up in a lower offer. If what you actually want is more closet space, there's a smarter middle ground. Borrow a few feet from the room and build out a bigger closet instead of eliminating the bedroom entirely. Or they make all kinds of creative built-in solutions now that are less permanent. You can get the extra storage you need without losing the bedroom count that most buyers are counting on. Before we get to the upgrades that are actually worth it, here's a concept worth knowing that ties all of this together. It's called the principle of regression in real estate appraisal. In plain English, if your house is already the largest or the nicest one on the block, your upgrades will not return dollar for dollar because the neighborhood sets the ceiling on value. You could put in the nicest pool, the best kitchen, the top of the line of everything, and if every other house around you is worth less, an appraiser is going to value your home closer to what the neighborhood supports, which means your value will be pulled down. So if you're already sitting at the top of your street's price range, my honest advice is to put your money into upgrades that you'll actually enjoy living with day to day and are worth the money regardless of the return on investment down the road. Now, let's end on a good note, because not every upgrade is bad. A mid-range bathroom remodel is one of the strongest returns you can do to your house right now. And you can expect to recoup somewhere around 75 to 80% of what you spent when you go to sell. That's not dollar for dollar, but it's probably the safest renovation dollars that you can spend. And if you want a smaller win, back to the topic of closets, closet built-ins are one of those upgrades buyers notice the second they walk through a house. Anytime I show a house that has them, people almost always comment on how much they love the look and practicality of them. And from what I see on the ground here every day as I walk houses, organized closet space is just one of those small details that makes a home feel more furnished and more move-in ready, without costing anywhere near what a full renovation would. So those are your 7 upgrades that turn into regrets and 2 that are actually worth your money. None of this means do not renovate your house. It just means renovate with your eyes open, knowing which projects are for you and which ones are actually going to hold their value when you decide to sell. If you want to go deeper on what to avoid entirely before you even start house hunting here, I made a full video on the types of houses that I would steer my own clients away from in Houston. Check that one out right here. Drop a comment and let me know which one of these surprised you the most. If you're gearing up to move to Houston, grab that relocation guide below. It'll save you a lot of guesswork. And if you'd rather just talk it through with an actual person, reach out to me directly. I'm so glad you joined me today. I'm Allie Grodsky, and I'll see you next time.